So Luigi Mangione is facing nearly a dozen counts in New York. In addition to those, prosecutors are reportedly weighing federal charges. Why? Well, it would let them pursue the death penalty. New York got rid of that 20 years ago.
So there are two hearings happening today. The first one is on the charges that he's facing in Pennsylvania, where he was caught. The second hearing is about extradition. He's expected to waive that. If he does, the NYPD will immediately take him into custody. The next stop will be criminal court in downtown Manhattan.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul reacting to all of this. She says Mangione will pay for his alleged crimes.
I'm ready to bring him back here and to make sure that justice is served to someone who had the audacity to gun down any New Yorker. I don't care what their title is, but that brazen move on our streets not far from here must result in severe consequences.
So in a moment, analysis from Paul Mauro and Andrew Cherkasky. But first, Bryan Llenas is of the coverage of the courthouse. That's Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, Blair County, well east of Pittsburgh. And Bryan, what's happening now? Hello.
Bill, good morning. Well, Luigi Mangione is having two court hearings. There was one scheduled at 8:30 this morning. That has to deal with the lesser state charges. That's the gun and the false ID, fake ID charge. And then there's the 9 a.m. extradition hearing that is happening in the exact same courthouse. And that will be where we are told he will waive his extradition and will be then moved to New York. Now, our colleagues at Fox 5 in New York, Robert Moses, is reporting that the NYPD will move Luigi Mangione via plane, that they do not want to drive him the 5 hours that it would take to get from Altoona to New York to avoid that media spectacle that would ensue with that 5-hour drive. Now, what we've seen here at the courthouse, well, Luigi Mangione arrived at this courthouse this morning. He was clean shaven, looked like he got a haircut. He did not say a word. We've also seen dozens of reporters lined up early this morning to try to snag a seat inside one of those two courtrooms, or in fact, either of those courtrooms. And we've also seen more than half a dozen Luigi supporters, free Luigi supporters, wearing Luigi hats and holding signs, including one man, Adam, from Ohio, who had a sign that said "Murder for profit is terrorism." Now, look, once in Manhattan, Luigi Mangione could be arraigned on 11 criminal counts as soon as this afternoon, and that includes that first-degree murder charge as an act of terrorism. Now, one former Manhattan DA prosecutor tells us that they're surprised by that terrorism charge because that opens the door to allow this trial to become more political and about the healthcare industry. Listen.
I think it's very surprising, and I don't like it because I think they're playing into the defense's hands. They are inviting a possible soapbox. They are inviting him to rant and rave or present witnesses that would somehow challenge that or endorse it if that's really what he wants to do.
The New York Post has reported that Mangione is also expected to be charged with federal charges very soon. Now, Mangione has retained the high-powered New York attorney Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and she says this about that report, quote, "The federal government's reported decision to pile on top of an already overcharged first-degree murder and state terror case is highly unusual and raises serious constitutional and statutory double jeopardy concerns. We are ready to fight these charges in whatever court they are brought." Luigi Mangione is very likely to be denied bail once in New York City. He then will be sent to Rikers Island.
Got it. Okay, Bryan, thanks. Bryan Llenas leading our coverage there in Pennsylvania. Stand by. Back to you with movements at the courthouse. Thanks.
And Paul Mauro, retired NYPD inspector, and Andrew Cherkasky is a criminal defense attorney. They both join us now. So, Paul, what are you looking to learn today from all of this?
The real key here is going to be whether or not the reporting is accurate that the feds already have an indictment. They must have moved awfully quickly. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot to get a federal indictment. Sometimes, remember, federal, you can use hearsay. So you just get some agents in and say, this is what we heard, this is what we saw, you get the indictment. They moved very quickly here, and you have to imagine that if Bragg is going all the way with this thing, murder one with the terrorism enhancement, then they are looking for a death penalty cases. Otherwise, there's no real reason to do this. Now, you don't know if and when they're going to really assert their case, but there's a chance they're going to wait until January 21st, or maybe after Pam Bondi is confirmed. because there's going to be a very different dynamic then if they want the case, particularly if they want to take the case from Alvin Bragg's office.
Interesting. Andrew, what about you?
Well, they are certainly throwing the book at him. It's interesting that we are talking charges both federally in New York and Pennsylvania. What's most kind of concerning is that in New York and the federal government, if they are both charging murder, that's not constitutionally prohibited double jeopardy, but New York has a law that essentially prohibits New York from moving forward with charges where the feds are moving forward with the same charges. There's exceptions to that, but New York essentially could have this case pulled from it, that going to the federal government. Does that mean that they don't trust Alvin Bragg? Does that mean that there's some sort of information that the feds have that the locals don't have, or is it just because they're trying to get to the death penalty? Death penalty murder charges federally are very difficult to prove. Usually just one person killing another person doesn't get you to the death penalty. You need aggravators there. And so the aggravators that we'll see federally to try to get to that death penalty, that may be a difficult hill for them to climb, and further give platform to Mangione to talk about his motives and his connections to the healthcare industry.
Something changed a little bit with him because he was fighting it. Now it appears that he's going to concede.
What about, Paul, the additional charge of terrorism?
At the state level. So, right. So this is a little bit different. The way it's generally set up in the state is that you have a crime and there's what's called a terrorism enhancement, right? You say robbery as a crime of terrorism, conspiracy to commit murder as a crime of terrorism. It's sort of an overlay. This is different. They charge that for the murder too. But the top charge, murder one, it's very specific in New York. It has a bunch of things that are possibilities. Killing a cop line of duty, fire department, EMT, murder for hire, killing a witness, okay? Comes out of these complicated mafia cases and all that stuff. And in this case, however, if you go all the way down to the bottom, you're going to see terrorism.
A couple things I'm trying to figure out here. Do we know yet if he was a customer of United Healthcare?
I don't think we know that. We also don't know if he's connected to anybody else. You have to wonder, was there somebody feeding him information? How did he know to be out there at that time? How did he know what he was looking for? And so who else is involved? There's some cell phone information that we still don't have. Did he call somebody right before this? I think that's the biggest piece of kind of all of this.
That's
who
a good
else
point.
is involved?
Yeah. The other question I have is, do we know if the screws in this X-ray that he posted on a social media site are indeed his?
We don't know if they are his definitively. We also don't know what sort of impact his back pain and his medical issues could have had on him psychologically. I think we're going to see a lot from the defense. If they end up conceding that he was involved in this and that he did this, are they going to go with some sort of mitigation defense where his mental health or his overall pain, his overall distress contributed to his motivation, as opposed to this being as cold-hearted as it appears right now?
Quick thought on what Bryan was saying, that is there concern about the extradition, the travel of getting Mangione to New York?
Apparently they wanted just to avoid the media, and so they're going to put him on a plane. They're going to get NYPD has that capacity, so they're going to get him back. He's going to be back here tonight, one way or the other. And what's going to be interesting to see is when he hits the ground here, does he go into federal court or state court? So everybody's going to be watching.
So we're trying to figure out rationale here and motive, and we have not given a clear answer just yet. I asked that question because it's been reported that he is not a customer of United Healthcare.
Right.
So why would he target that individual here in Manhattan? Gentlemen, thank you. Stand by, okay? We got a lot more questions. We're going to see some movement today.
Thank you.